So how many of you are comfortable talking about menstrual cycles? How many of you are uncomfortable that I started with that? Once a month, a few of us go out on a prayer walk in the city. We go around and pray for the people of Lancaster, sometimes chatting with those who we come in contact with, and sometimes praying with them. We also carry with us bags that include things like toiletries and socks, bottled water, snacks, things like that. That's where we ran into Lucy. And Lucy, after talking to her for a few minutes and giving her a bag, said, "Do you have any powder?" She said, "It's hot." She said, "And when you're homeless," she said, "it's hard to keep clean and dry, especially when you have your period." And she said, "It's hard to find bathrooms that you can use here, especially at night." She said, she talked a little bit more and talked about the shame that she felt and the embarrassment about feeling unclean. And I promised her that we would find her some feminine products and get her some powder. And so she shared this with me, these intimate details, because she wanted some form of help. But what I got from it was so much more than that. A few months later, I was walking into my office and I bumped into a gentleman and he said, "Would you happen to have $1 so that I could get something to eat at McDonald's?" And I said, "No, I don't carry cash on me." I said, "But we could go into the Subway here and get breakfast." And he said, "Subway's too expensive. I couldn't ask you to do that." And I said, "No, I really would like to. And if it makes you feel more comfortable, we'll just put it on the pastor's tab on the church up the street." And so after some talking to him, I'm the pastor up the street, by the way. So we go in and we get some lunch. And as we're talking, he tells me that he's homeless. And I said, "Why don't you come up to my office and talk with me for a little bit? Maybe we can figure out some way to get some help." And so we go up and we're talking for a little bit and find out that he has some health issues. And so I say to him, "Let's call your insurance company." And we call, and the first question they ask is, "What's your address?" Followed by, "What's your phone number?" He says, "I don't have them, I'm homeless. So we can't help you. We can't do anything for you if you don't have an address." He said, "But I'm homeless, I don't have one." And so we got transferred to someone else, and we continued to wait on hold and get transferred and wait on hold and get transferred. And finally we get somewhere, and they said, "Well, we're gonna look into this. We'll call you back in about an hour." And at this point he says to me, "I'm gonna go and take a walk. I'll be back in about an hour." And he doesn't come back. And the next day he walks into my office and he said, "Are you still willing to help me?" And his eyes were bloodshot, and he said, "What I really need is rehab. Can you help me get into rehab?" And so we started again with the phone calls on a different set of places, and while we're on hold and waiting to get some information, he tells me more of his story. He has HIV. His daughter won't talk to him anymore because of years of drug use. And he had an apartment, but he lost it when he got arrested for possession. And when he got out, he had nowhere to go. So each person comes back on the phone and says, "We'll give you a call back in about sometime within the next 2 hours. We think we might have a bed for you." So he says, "I need some air." And I looked at him and I said, "Are you safe to go out on the streets for 2 hours and to come back without using?" And he looked at me and he said, "Pastora," he said, "I have put drugs before my family." He said, "Before my God, before my job, before my own health, before everything that matters to me." He said, "I will be back here at 4 o'clock. And at 4:01, he walked into my office, and I was elated to tell him that we had found him a bed and that they were coming to pick him up in just an hour. He said, "Pray with me, please." He said, "Tell your congregation about me so they'll pray for me too." And he looked like a kid going to a vacation when he got in that car and waved to me until the car was out of sight. And then there's Daryl. Daryl comes in and sees me pretty regularly, sometimes just for a cup of coffee and a check-in, sometimes to use the phone, or sometimes because he needs a safe place to close his eyes for a few minutes. He's dealt with mental health for his whole life. And fear of people, mistrust, and an inability to manage his medication has left him homeless. Daryl always has a sense of humor. Daryl's always in a good mood. Rarely do I ever see Daryl sad. And the one time that I remember seeing him sad, he came in and I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "I'm tired." He said, "No, I'm not tired, I'm weary. I'm weary of being on the streets. It's tough. He said the days aren't so bad. You get to talk to people, you get to walk around. It's kind of like normal. He said, but the nights are hard. The nights are lonely. He said, I haven't had an intimate relationship in several years. He said, and the streets are no place to start one. He said, there's nowhere to go to be alone. You can't get to connect with someone, and intimacy is really difficult when you don't have a bed or a place to stay. Why do I tell you the stories of Daryl and Larry and Lucy? Because their courage blows my mind. Because they're willing and open to share the most vulnerable details of their life. And because by doing so, they have touched me and blessed me and challenged me to do more, to care more, to share more, to listen more. Because they're not the only people with a story to share. We all have a story to share. The world changes when we share our stories. My world has changed because they have shared their story with me. And my hope is that we all can find the courage that they have to share ours. Thank you.